Ja, hier ben ik weer en ik gaf al aan van ik ga wat vaker filmpjes maken. Ik ben nog steeds aan het nadenken, as we speak, van zal ik dit nou in het Engels of in het Nederlands doen? Want I think this is important for everybody to know. So I think I'm gonna do this video in English. First, the news. How do we know that the news is real? Because they make movies, and in the movies, it looks like it's all real. So, is it not possible that they can make the news like the movies? There is one false event I witnessed myself in Holland. That was the Utrechtse tramschutter. That was a guy who shot people in a tram in Amsterdam, Utrecht. And I was seeing the whole event live on TV. And I did not saw one splatter of blood or somebody crying. I saw a big play. It was one big play. It was like a movie. Well, I put this video under my voice because this movie reminded me how good they can make the movies and how real it can look. And if they tell this on the news, I would believe it. I would believe it. So that's to start this video off about what we are seeing. Is what we are seeing real, or is this staged? So it's very important to keep an open mind. Stay open and don't believe everything you see. That's very important. These are very special times. You know, I was looking all through this movie and thinking, how did they make this? How did they make this? And if they can make this, they can make everything. And they can show it on the news. Okay. And then, the news. The news is going to tell us what is happening in the world. And they're always sure to make sure that we, the people, or the moon in this case, are the guilty one. So they give us a very bad story and they make sure that they point out who is the guilty one. Listen to this.
Some cities in the next decade, and you can blame it all on the moon.
A wobble in the moon could create dangerous waves for coastal communities. A NASA study found the moon's natural wobble as it orbits the Earth could create high tides that cause widespread flooding. The moon's tilt changes over its 18.6-year cycle.
That wobble, in combination with climate change and sea level rise, could significantly increase high tide flooding across the globe and here in Louisiana.
It's a relatively small shift that has a relatively large impact on the tides that we see here on Earth.
Scientists have predicted this for the last 70 years. Heavy rain, flash floods, extraordinary results. Parts of the capital experienced torrential downpours yesterday.
Well, we're catching the drift, and they keep on wanting us to forget that this is not the first time all those things are happening. This is not the first time that all those things are happening. But they make it like that because we forget, because they are messing with our history. They don't file our history correctly.
Concentrations of red tide this high.
The images here are astonishing. Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dead fish floating in the water.
These massive fish kills continue to be a major problem in the Bay Area.
The city says the massive amounts of dead fish started washing up in St. Pete waterways about 10 days ago. But emergency officials say in the last 24 hours, they've cleaned up more dead fish than in the past week.
Dead fish littering the shorelines across Tampa Bay.
I've been coming here for 10 years. I mean, this is worse. It's the worst it's ever been.
Bait fish, sport fish, stingrays, even dolphins and manatees, all killed by red tide.
Worried about the future. This used to be alive. Now there's nothing. Most of the mussels around here now are all gone. My clams, you see the sand dollars and stuff, are all dead.
The mass dive illustrates the impact of climate change here and now.
We knew the heat might...
You know, and that's where the lie begins, because it's not the climate change. All these things happened before. And the things that didn't happen before, they're happening because they're toying with their nanotechnology. And here, this is a map from the weather, from the weather. And then you can see in 1933, that is the highest blue line up and the lowest blue line down. In 1933, it was much hotter. And the red line jumps every 5 years to 2020. And if you look at the red line, it's no worse. It's no worse. Because every time if they show you a status like this, you always have to wonder, this one is good, where is the rest of it? Are they showing us the whole status? Because if you only look at a small portion of the status, it could be a whole different story. Yeah? So the climate, nothing happened to the climate. It's all still the same. And worse, that all the countries did not do anything that worked against the water, because the water ruins all the cities, just like in the olden days. And in the year 1933, a lot of things happened. A lot of laws were signed and plans were launched. And I don't know if you know her, this is Deborah Tavares, and she discovered a document from America signed in 1933 in Amsterdam, the XXX. And in that document is stated that the people are the enemies and that they will take the people down with slow weapons, like food, like poisoning your clothes, like silent weapons, like the nanobots, and misinformation, like the TV. They stated it in that document from 1933. And I wanted to show that to you, but of course, this lady is being deleted from YouTube. But she found another document. So listen to this. Listen to this. Very important stuff.
By Dennis Bushnell, NASA scientist at the Langley Center. And it was presented in 2001, July of 2001, just a few months before 9/11. And what brought my attention to it and immediately rang some uncomfortable realizations was when we first came across it. It says on the website, Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare circa 2025. And as I decided to just flip through it quickly to see what it was about, I was a little stunned on page 4. It said, the presentation is based in all cases upon existing data, trends, analysis, technologies, no pixie dust. And the entire premise of the document, or the PowerPoint, is about robots, cyborgs, and humans. So I immediately saw a conflict between future and now. And I thought, what are they covering up? Because that was a definite cover-up. And then I started to continue looking through the document with shock. And that's why we're talking right now. Because I think most people would be shocked to find on page 93.
So who wrote this NASA document, and was this intentional? Did they want the public to see this, do you think? Or?
Well, again, the Illuminati, the most wealthy, rich men on the face of the planet, always telegraph everything that they're going to do. So the fact that it was on the NASA website, it was certainly available to the public, but did they see it? Obviously not. Because had they looked at this document, you would know about it right now. And we don't. And that's the purpose of this discussion, is for people to know about this document. Again, the conflict between the future and the fact that they said it was a current reality in 2001 of July when this was actually presented. And what it said, which was quite shocking, on page 93, it said, "Capture, torture Americans in living color on prime time." And that is an unbelievable statement. Then it's followed up by saying, "Terror attacks within the continental United States using binary biologicals take down critical infrastructure. They are going to use an EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse. They're going to use radiation frequencies against our brains, etc., and conduct serious psy-war and collateral damage and exploitation." On this same page 93, they say exploit CNN syndrome. Now, CNN, of course, is the network, the news media network, propaganda machine, and was set up by the CIA. You can watch the movie called Psy-War on stopthecrime.net for all the background information on CNN. Very, very interesting information. Then you go on and you read that on page 66, they say increasingly critical are human limitations and human downsides. Humans are too large, humans are too heavy, too tender, humans are too slow, both physically and mentally, and we require huge logistical trains, meaning we cost way too much money to maintain, and humans have rapidly decreasing to negative value. Can you even believe this? I mean, you're hearing this, and it's got to be rather shocking coming off of a NASA website, particularly when some of the agencies that are involved are the U.S. Air Force, DARPA, the CIA, the FBI, Southern Command, Atlantic Command, Australian Department of Defense, and other agencies. This is the corporation's agencies. We are USA Inc. We're no longer under a constitution as proclaimed in the Iron Mountain Report, which everyone should read. On stopthecrime.net, you can download it not only as the document, but you can watch the documentary, which I highly recommend. You will see how the stealth and deceptive, incrementally positioned attacks upon the Constitution have rendered us now a corporation, and we no longer have a legitimate government. We are being controlled by corporations and banks that are posing as a legitimate government, and they're not. We wouldn't have a legitimate government with the war machine stating what they were going to do on the continental United States to all the people. And this is not just in the United States. This is a global planned attack and assault with technologies beyond most people's comprehension. Everyone is buying books and ammunition, guns and ammunition, and they don't realize that the beam weapons, for example, on page 45, beam weapons increasingly prevalent. This is how they're going to attack. They talk also about, on page 9, this is very interesting and horrifying. Humans have taken over and vastly shortened evolution. They're going to direct evolution. They believe, the bankers, the global elites, believe that they have accomplished immortality. And they're doing that, again, keeping in mind that this entire document is about robots, cyborgs, and humans. They've already mapped our brains. We've just recently heard that they can transfer a human brain into machinery. So whenever they tell us that this is a new scientific discovery, we know it's been decades and decades prior to us ever finding out about these things. And they also talk about microdust as a weapon. They say that this micron-sized mechanized dust, which is distributed as an aerosol and inhaled into the lungs, the dust mechanically bores into the lung tissue and executes various pathological missions. They say it's a completely new type of...
This sounds like a disease we're having right now, if we already have it.
Warfare, and it is legal. It's legal. This is what they're going to do to all the humans on the face of this planet. It's all legal. And then they talk about how the use of frequencies will be used in warfare. And we know, for example, the smart meters that are being deployed around the globe, the replacement of our electric meters, which will also and does include the replacement of all of our gas meters and our water meters as well, and will be connected to our food supply when they collapse the currency and they issue energy allowances, and that will all be controlled through the metering system. But they talk about the use of low frequencies, microwave frequencies, and they mention in this NASA document the U.S. Army report. The U.S. Army report is on our website, smartmetersmurder.com. It's about a 20-page Army document that talks about the use of frequencies to target the enemy. We're the enemy. And they say 100% of the human population will be affected by these frequencies. Some will be the canaries in the coal mine, which is a term that they've been using as people have been dropping like flies. People are experiencing all kinds of health maladies. Generally, it starts with ringing of the ears, heart palpitations, skin rashes, inability to sleep through the night. And what they're doing is they're jamming our immune systems with these frequencies.
Is really the...
And that's why it's very important that if there is any health matter that you have to take action right now or investigate how you can solve it naturally. And otherwise, for example, women who have, I don't know how you call it in English, but we call it a spiraaltje, like a little thing that you put in your uterus so it prevents you from having children, but you have to take it out again. So my advice is take it out because you don't want to be in a hospital. If you want to be in a hospital, you do it now and not later. And the same goes for blood, because I'm gonna go to the hospital. I'm gonna have an operation, and then they ask me, do I want to have a blood transfusion if it's necessary? Well, no, I don't want any blood. Only if they can guarantee for 1000% there is no vaccinated blood in there, no COVID vaccine in my blood transfusion. So you really have to stay alert and prepare and think ahead. What do you might need? What in your family is current, or what kinds of disease are in your family? So you can already take the steps. Because the reason I have to have surgery, it's in my family. So I thought, okay, let's figure it out right now, because I'm not going to do this later. So that's very, very important. If you have things in your body that needs to get out, take it out right now before you cannot go to the hospital without your vaccine. And then we have Derek Gilbert, and it's very interesting because I was looking for this video a long time, because he was talking about the travelers and about a mountain in the east, and that the people thought, in this time we think travelers are people who are travel from Spain to Italy or from America to China, but that are not the travelers. The travelers are people who are raised from the dead. They're coming from another world. They're coming from a spirit realm or something different. And when I heard that, I directly had to think about the Freemasons, because the Masons have a saying, we're coming from the East. So check this out.
Is really the engagement with the spirit realm, these principalities and powers that the Apostle Paul wrote about. I mean, he made it very clear in Ephesians chapter 6. That's the letter that he wrote to the church at Ephesus, which is in Turkey, where he said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. His point is, we're not wrestling against or contending with human opponents, even though we may see people of a different political party or a different lifestyle choice or a different skin color as the enemy. That's really not true. The true enemy of mankind, of all mankind, whether we realize it or not, it's not, us humans one against another. It's really these principalities, powers, thrones, dominions, cosmic rulers of this present darkness. Paul was talking about spiritual entities who have rebelled against the creator of the universe and who basically want to destroy humanity. And they're doing it by getting us to fight with each other. So Paul was trying to tell us, hey, look, spiritual warfare, guys, that's what this is about. It's against these principalities and powers. And it begins for Christians on our knees. It's hard because as humans, especially as men, we see a problem, we want to fix it. But we're operating in the natural realm, We got our natural senses, we see a problem, we want to, and oftentimes that means fixing the person we disagree with. But that's not it. The enemy already wins if we already approach that other person. If we already approach that other person.
Well, and this is, I found a lot of documents, books from the Masons, and they are talking about East, so I was looking up East. And they have quite a number of rituals where you come from the East and you do a little dance and a song and a little thing, and then you go back to the East. So they're coming from the East. That's clear. So that was the point I wanted to make, that they're coming from the East. I don't know if you can read the text. Also, the three wise from the East. Maybe that's also, one of the lies that they told us, the wise of the East, because now we know that the travelers come from the East.
Until dawn of the third.
Yeah, and they say also Lucifer is the Masonic god or the light bringer.
They arrive to be resurrected. Like Jesus, who went down and preached and proclaimed to the spirits in prison until dawn of the third day, when he arrived, except that he really was resurrected. And Ezekiel, in Ezekiel 39 says, this is where these travelers will be buried. Another one of the stops on in fact, the mountain where Moses was led by God to get his only view of the Holy Land, the Promised Land. Climb this mountain of the Avarim. In Hebrew, that means travelers. Mount Nebo is the mountain of the travelers. It's right there across from Jericho in the plains of Moab. And that's where this demonic army will fall. Now, I believe that the Nephilim will return. I believe they're going to be the demons who possess a human army. I think by this point, the restrainer will have been removed. The church will be removed. So I pray I'm right, that we won't be here for that day, because that's the day of Armageddon. And when this demonic army comes against Jerusalem to try to claim God's Mount of Assembly, just like Lucifer in Isaiah 14, I will establish my Mount of Assembly on Mount Zaphon, raise himself above the stars, the angels of God. On that day, when God personally takes the battlefield, which Ezekiel describes, the travelers will be destroyed. And interestingly, in that verse in Ezekiel 39, he says, then the world will know I am the Holy One in Israel. That phrase is similar to one that we see in the Old Testament many times. the Holy One of Israel. Ezekiel 39, after he destroys the Antichrist army in the Battle of Armageddon that ends the war of Gog and Magog, he becomes the Holy One in Israel because he's on the battlefield. So yes, that is when, the Nephilim have always been here. If they're the spirits of those who died in the flood 6,000 years ago, they've always been with us because demons have always been with us. But on that day, they will be inhabiting the bodies of I believe, this army that comes against Israel. It will literally be an army of the evil dead. Like the ultimate zombie apocalypse. God puts a stop to it. And what does it mean when Ezekiel writes in Ezekiel 39:11, it will block the travelers? The word translated block is only used one other place in the Bible. It's in Deuteronomy, the verse that talks about thou shalt not muzzle an ox when he treads out the grain. Muzzle. I'm not quite sure what that means, but if we take it in context of what Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 15, that we shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. We will be resurrected. Maybe that's what God is saying. I will block the travelers. They're dead and they are staying dead when the rest of us are resurrected into new glorified bodies.
Yeah, the zombie apocalypse. I heard of that earlier. CDC. Zombie preparedness. I showed this before. But they are not showing this with no reason. They even had zombie preparedness products and a blog and for educators. And they have a poster. They have everything. And they say they have it because the teachers thought it was such a nice idea to hang the topic of preparedness on zombies because children like zombies. Well, they're always telling us the truth, and there's always a story behind the story. Listen how they try to sell this to the children.
Good morning, agents. I have some bad news. Terrible news. You're going to have to work together as a team. And no, that's not the bad news. An increasing number of citizens in remote areas are disappearing. As more people disappear, the number of gruesome, unexplained deaths is increasing, especially at night. We've identified the perpetrators as difficult to kill, flesh-eating zombies. Unfortunately, the number of undead is rapidly increasing, and the victims have been reappearing as perpetrators. Survivors are running scared, and citizens are starting to panic. We're seeing a breakdown of peacekeeping and medical services throughout the nation, and key officials have been compromised. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to ensure your community is prepared for a zombie apocalypse. Your teacher has further information regarding the situation. Thank you, agents, and good luck.
You see how the programming works? They make the children agents. They make sure that the teacher is the head of the classroom and the teacher will have more information. You have to make sure that your village or your town is staying safe, and you already prepared that something like that can happen. So we already know that they show everything that's going to happen through a cartoon movie. So this is more the same. Well, the next video is from a guy who tried to explain how we're all slaves and how the birth certificate sounds so nice and how social security sounds so nice, but in fact it's something different. And they want us to forget everything that happened in the past. So we experience everything like, oh, this is the first time. Terrible. Wow, that such a thing could happen. I really didn't know, have any idea. No. Here again is a law or rule or change. And it all started in 1933. Again, in 1933.
1933, which was the real reason why they created the Great Depression of 29. To get people to beg for social insurance. Now, here in Canada, we call it social insurance. In the United States, they fought revolutionary wars and they fought civil wars, and they understood that security was a better word. It sounded better to the Americans. So to sell it to the Americans, they called it social security. But they themselves call it social insurance, and that's what it is. Okay, now having said that, I'll go back to this document, which you can get from the freedompool.org online. And this was a meeting. Okay, this is what House said. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property. That's the birth certificate. They will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work and earn a living, the sin. They will be our chattel. That means slaves, it means collateral. You're secured as collateral. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever. By operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, forever to remain economic slaves through taxation, secured by their pledges, the birth certificate. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us profit, and they will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans. And if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we may incur in this matter. Every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless, and without any hope for their redemption, we will employ the high office of the president of our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. This is a certified true copy of my live statement of birth. You can get this by applying for it at the Registrar General. They'll give it to you. And it's very interesting because this is where it all began. This is the foundation document. All identification is generated from this document. And so if the foundation document is no good, anything that's made from it is no good. That means driver's licenses, health cards, everything. Now what they did here, this is exactly what he meant when he said, soon every American will be required to register their biological property. Now your parents didn't realize what they were doing when they filled this out, and these didn't exist before 1933. Birth records were recorded in scripture, and these only came into being in 1933 when they hatched this plan. They created a corporate fiction with a name just like yours. In doing this, they registered and monetized the spirit and soul of a living being.
Well,